Hmm.
And I think it's that time of month. It's the last Friday of the month. I think we should go for it, I think. Hi everyone. You ready? Hi everyone who is joining us on the live stream. We're live streaming on LinkedIn and also YouTube. And we're also actually in the audience here, in a very sticky hot audience. We're here with another PMO HotHouse, and just to reiterate that it's hot, hot, hot today. So we put the hot in hot PMO. Is that not your catchphrase, John? That's what you should have been on that today. Let's go. Let's do PMO hot.
Responsibility.
Hello, 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 everyone. Here we are for another PMO hot house. We're in the very hot house today. Anybody in the Northern Hemisphere, certainly in Europe, it's a hot one. Joined today with Eileen and John as ever. How are you two both doing?
Hot. Hot, hot, hot.
I know. In fact, John, you have your company. Is named Hot
I
PMO.
know we are hot in so many senses today.
Excellent. So thanks very much for joining us. We're going again with another PMO Hot Hour, and this one is a special one because we've just had the PMO conference, in case you weren't aware and you've not seen it. But we're going to be looking at both days at the conference and some of the learnings. We can't do all of it because there was a hell of a lot going on. So before we do that, though, it's one of the participants' favourite bits, which is the news section. Let's have a look at.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Read all about it. Hey, John. Hopefully you've had some chance to pull some news together. Been a busy month. You ready to go?
As always, yes, indeed. I got a few things for you this week. Probably the biggest one. Um, it is an AI story. Oh, hang on. These are. Oh, sorry.
Well,
Oh no, this one. Sorry, let's start with this one. Even better. Let's start with this one. I blame the heat. I blame the heat. This is an interesting one. So I put this in. This is it's quite it's a thought piece that was published this month, and it's a reflection from a seasoned project person. He's been around for a very long time. He's reflecting on lessons from a project he was on that he recalls from 1973, modern day Olympics, and discussions around contracts and everything else. Now, those that are sort of agile-minded people will recall the Agile Manifesto, where we put conversations and relationships over contracts. There's a lot of that in here, but he's sort of thinking about reflecting on the conversations that happened on a project he did back then, which centered on clay and what was defined as normal clay. This is where they had a contractor on site on a construction project. They had to dig 600 millimeters down into sandy, stony clay, which all makes sense. There was a borehole report that said that was 2 meters down, but in reality it was in lots of different places. And then there was a whole debate about what the contract meant by sandy, stony clay. Which areas met this definition? Whether this was actually more muddy clay than sandy, stony clay. Was it more sandy than stony in different places? And so it went on. And it all went to a legal mess of an argument over what the contract meant and what the contract didn't mean. This he does some comparisons in there with Sydney Olympics and things, but it's a nice reflective piece for those of you that have been around this millions of times in the past, which I'm sure lots of you have, where you get into these conversations where everyone is down to arguing about the precise meaning of contracts. Contracts are ideally meant to be there as your backstop. It's important to obviously have them set out clearly so people can refer back to them, but they should be something that are there as a sort of backstop for you rather than anything you're referring to. I tend to view it on my project that actually, if you're back to the contract, contact, then it means you've kind of failed in your communication on things. But there's a few other things that it draws out there that I just wanted to sort of highlight. I'll share this article as ever with you, but there's a few things just to highlight there. Firstly, he really makes the point in his reflections over his career on documentation and contracts is that they really are the starting point and shouldn't be and different to a blueprint. They set out what was intended at the time, and they plan for things that you believe are normal, but in reality, of course, things change as we go. We know that already. So he emphasizes the importance of social integration, engagement between people. It's not just about the contracts. Actually, shared meaning and trust are the most important things to have. And once you get those right, then you understand that actually things evolve as all sides discover how you move forwards together from the contract that you had originally. Another interesting point in this one that I wanted to call out, because we do this a lot, being skeptical of sort of ad hoc, post hoc, so retrospective explanations for things. We tend to sort of be quite good at looking at why projects slip, why things deviate from the contracts that were put in place at the beginning. He notes throughout this that actually most of those tend to be rationalizations afterwards. It's very easy to look backwards and say, well, actually, we can rationalize why this moved without fully understanding the decision points that you hit along the way that could have gone either way, and the conversations that happened as well. So anyone that's in these kind of conversations, these kind of challenges around contracts and everything, be open and candid with your stakeholders and the project managers, just to be super clear. Look, when we're building these contracts up front, we all need to be mindful that these are a starting point, these plan for normal. We do contract for the problems that we're going to have, but we're never going to capture everything. It's very, very important to make sure we're building the relationships around things and looking at how we can build that social integration in there so people understand, have a common view of what's been contracted and how they move forward together. I will share that with you after this. So anyone that wants to dig into, if you pardon the pun, the differences between sandy clay, stony clay, muddy clay, and how this contract turned out, then this is a nice bedtime read for you. Right, on to our next one, which is the big one for us. This is a standard that has come out from PMI this month. Their standard for artificial intelligence in the PMO space. And it's big. You've got over 200 pages in there to get through, which make me wonder how many people are just going to take this and throw this straight into their AI chat tool and ask it to summarize it for them. I'm not sure whether that defeats the objects of it or whether that is using it as it's intended and using the tools. I've got no idea. It's an interesting one. And as Eileen's just said, I wonder how much AI was used to develop it. I did have a quick look through for those kind of obvious tells of AI writing. Not much in there. So it has gone through quite a thorough peer review. I'm sure some was used in the researching, but it certainly doesn't read like it's been written by AI, which is very, very good news. So key things, they make a big thing of this being ANSI approved. It's a published global standard. For me, it's an interesting antidote to everything that comes out of the big AI and big tech organizations at the moment who are gallivanting ahead with trying to get things out there, throw tools out there and let's get everyone playing with them. This is actually taking quite a thoughtful approach about how we actually govern control this in the project space. It covers it from two angles, looking at how we use AI in projects delivery and also what we should be thinking about for delivering AI as a project. So it does move between those two points in there. I saw someone asking, is it only available for PMI members? No, it is available to purchase for $79.95 US if you want to purchase a copy of it, or you can become a member of PMI and have access to it for free as a member of their organization, which is much the same as most of the organizations do for some of the content that, to be fair, takes a lot of time and effort to research and pull together for everybody. So what do they have in here? Well, they have principles. because, as we've said before, you can never get too many principles. I think we've got an article on the Hot PMO site about the number of different principles. We've got PMI principles, we've got principles for the PMO, we've got principles for the for Prince 2, we've got organizational principles, and now we have 8 principles for AI in the P3M space. Interestingly and quite insanely, they insist on calling P3M PPPM all the way through this, which is PMI's way of doing it. I don't know why they haven't adopted P3M like everyone else seems to have, but there we go, PPPM all the way through their document, which gets tiresome really, really quickly. But yeah, their principles, human in the loop, no surprise on that one. Then they focus on ethics, professional responsibility, so ethical AI stewardship, a lot of emphasis on governance, compliance, people and culture, engaging stakeholders, and everything else you would expect there. A strong one is around strategic value, and there's a nice one to call out. Value is the guiding force that shapes decisions at every stage. Any AI related initiative should begin with a thorough analysis of its potential to create value, aligning closely with the overarching business goals and organizational strategy. This fosters a purpose-driven development where AI serves as a tool to deliver measurable benefits rather than as an end in and of itself. AI adoption can generate significant value for but its impact depends on alignment with strategic goals and continuous evaluation. I would strongly advise everyone to take that snippet back to their organizations and look at the AI stuff that you are doing through that lens of value and ask yourselves actually where it is adding value, because what we're seeing out there and what's coming up in conversations at meetups and everything else is there's a lot of organizations throwing licenses around and just seeing where things stick rather than taking any kind of strategic view on how things should be moving forwards. If you flick on to the next slide there, Lindsay, they do have performance domains for AI, which I've got on screen here. So a few of these, I'm not going to go through these in any real detail, but you can get a sense from this that they do make a good effort to align what they've got in here with their other PMI standards for project management. So it's not completely reinventing the wheel, and it does play nicely with their PMBOK and everything else. In the appendices, they've got some nice mappings of AI lifecycle and how that maps onto project life cycles and things as well. So they're trying to blend things through rather than have this as a completely independent publication that doesn't quite align with everything else, which is quite nice to see. But yeah, so thinking particularly around stakeholder expectations and how we manage those, clear scope for your AI execution, and looking at risks and uncertainties. The cynical amongst you will no doubt be looking at this going, hang on a minute, is there anything here that is different to how we do other kind of projects and engage on other things? I think that's a fair challenge. What I will say is for a lot of these, they've done that dance quite nicely of keeping to their standard where how PMBOK works and represents portfolio program and project management, but with an AI spin. So they're taking their standards, PMI's ways of working, and how does this work for AI, which is why you're seeing a lot of sections like this where it's saying it's a standard we should be following anyway, but let's look at that through the context of AI. Stuart's just asked, is there any link between this and the PMO specifically? There's not much in there about the PMO. PMO comes up twice if you would search for it. Once is in a section about key people, where it's all about stakeholders and everything else in there, which says that PMO may work on integrating AI-driven analytics into resource management, project tracking, performance evaluation, and using AI-driven analytics into resource management, project tracking, and performance evaluation. So it mentions the PMO in that context. That's the extent of where PMO is mentioned. The only other place it comes up in a search for PMO, which is obviously the first thing I did when I opened my copy, is somebody's got PMO in their, one of the reviewers has PMO in their job title. So that one was the second place that PMO came up, but that's the only place where it's specifically called out. In fairness, it doesn't call out many of the roles explicitly throughout, but that's the one time in particular that PMO is mentioned in there. If you jump onto the next slide, Lindsay, we do have examples where they're called out examples of different ways AI can be used in the context of projects and portfolio. They've defined a 2 by 2 essentially, with the y-axis being how complex a task is and who does the work, and deciding whether these are things that we can fully automate, whether we benefit from an AI supporting a human doing the work, or whether we're in that augmenting stage where its majority is human and we're using AI to pull bits of information together for a human to do. So I'm a bit woolly on the difference between their view of assisting and augmenting, but fundamentally it's more human control in the assisting and augmenting, whereas automating, you're trying to hand as much over to repeatable AI processes as you can. Now, I'm wary of these. I am very, very wary of everyone is getting AI doing meeting note summaries for them. I think we are creating a problem for ourselves there, candidly. We used to do very concise meeting minutes and meeting notes, and then we held people accountable for delivering those. Where AIs come in, and we seem to be getting transcripts and summaries of those and throwing those out into Teams channels, I'm seeing a decline in ownership of minutes, accountability around those, and accountability for completing actions from last minutes as well. We seem to just be throwing it out there and seeing if it sticks. I don't know if anyone else is seeing that as well, but I would sort of be hesitant of putting meeting minutes there as something that can be so heavily automated. I think it probably does need more human intervention than probably we're doing at the moment for it. So just one to think about there. The final slide, they don't explicitly call out Spider-Man in their document. So PMO gets 2 mentions, Spider-Man doesn't get any. But nonetheless, at the heart of everything they're doing is stressing the importance of human in the loop, human at the center of that web, as it were. But basically everything comes back to people, and even when we are fully automating things, we need to be clear on who the person is that's engaging with it, who takes responsibility, accountability, and a lot of emphasis on the governance and the human governance side of things, responsible AI management in there as well. So they do mention that quite a lot in here. If your organization, there's lots of different schools of thought, right? There's some organizations that are absolutely going hell for leather. Let's throw AI models out there and see what happens. Sort of throw ChatGPT licenses at everyone and just see what works and what doesn't work. There are others that are doing some real coordinated strategic projects with machine learning in some places, looking at strategic deployment of AI to accelerate the business and accelerate key flows through the business. There are all sorts of different ways people are approaching it. If you're one of those that is seeing it being put out there scattergun without much thought behind it, then this could be a good read for you to help you articulate what good practice should look like and what governance, compliance, and things should look like across it, because there's not much coming out on that from the big AI providers themselves, and there's quite a bit in here that could be useful for you. So well worth a look at from that perspective for you, I would say. And the final one I've got in here, which also ties nicely in with lessons learned, because I know what some of you are thinking. You're saying this is all very interesting, John, but what's happening in the regular publication Campbell's Systematic Reviews? And you would be right to wonder that, because worry no more. I do have a quick update for you on what has been happening in Campbell's systemic reviews. It is possibly the most boring, painful thing I have ever read. It's got a number of papers in there, but this one caught my eye. It's a method paper from eBay. They're based in Cameroon. This has on the surface nothing to do with project management, because they're looking at COVID and how they had to move very, very quickly with rapid reviews of things. And they were talking about the challenges of when you're doing rapid data reviews of things. Yeah, they do soup as well. In the evenings, they put out publications, Alan. So I've just seen your comment there. Yes, they've got lots of fingers in many, many pies. But they talked about having to do rapid reviews of documentation, of research, keep that all coordinated together, creating a sort of living evidence at the time. Now, what I tend to read a lot of these things and then think about them. This is interesting. There's some good stuff here. Can we link this back to project management? And this one kind of stood out for me because what they've talked about a lot here and what they've been doing is then looking at how can we do these rapid reviews, but how can we pull AI in as well? They've been experimenting with AI human in the loop. They've created a process. If you click to the next slide, Lindsay, there is a process model that they have created, where they're talking about how they're pulling data in from various repositories that were relevant to them for this particular piece of work. But it's easy to imagine how you could be pulling in things from your meeting transcripts, conversations around your projects, the documents that are in your PM project management repositories on SharePoint, combining that with what's in your PPM tool, pulling all of that information in, as well as what people are verbally calling the lessons learned, but actually then pulling that in and creating your kind of live lessons learned repository using AI. They emphasize the importance here of having people in the loop, so doing that screening of things, doing the data adjusting, extracting, pulling out, working with an AI tool to actually refine this and make sure lessons being derived actually makes sense. But what you're getting is something here which is a lot, you've got a richer, if you're doing this kind of thing, you're pulling a richer seam of data for your lessons learned, and also, yeah, putting a richer seam of data there than you would do from just having it in Excel spreadsheets as we've got at the moment. So it's an interesting one to look at from the perspective of how are we transitioning the lessons learned we've done in the past. We had lessons learned in a spreadsheet. We've moved to having that in tools. We then went to using retrospectives to get more immediate feedback in the world of Agile. This is now actually looking at a way of actually taking a lot of that data that we have using AI to support us in generating lessons that way as well. So I'd be interested in seeing if anyone has done any work in this space and how you're finding it. But I think we'll see a lot more of this in the future, using AI to consolidate and rationalize large amounts of data to allow us to pull richer insights from the projects that we've done in the past as well. So if you're not doing this, that's probably a call to action for you. If lessons learned is not an area that you're looking at AI for, take a look, and I'd be interested in seeing what you're doing. So there we go, 3 things there for you: lessons learned, thinking about clay and contracts there, and I'll share those articles with you as well. And of course, the biggie there is PMIs that's available to members, which is a standard for AI in the PPM space for you as well. That's the big things from this week. And of course, I believe there was something else. I heard there might have been a conference or something, Lindsay.
Yay! Of course it was. Let's move on.
Over to you for that one.
Thank you very much, John. Before we do that, just a little breaky poos. It's the new course that's coming up. We launched it earlier on this week with a webinar just to let people know about it. It's the dreaded subject that everybody has a challenge with, but there will be a 2-day course coming up. First pilot is being delivered in October. There'll be some more details going out. So if you're on the newsletter, we will be sharing details about that webinar and what we learned there. But essentially, it is based on the circle of resource management that many people have had, have contributed to that in order for us to be able to create that model in the first place. So you could say that it's a training course that has been, created by the profession for the profession, which is super dupes. So watch out for that one. We've also got the latest Inside PMO report that got published and launched at the conference. We will be doing another session on Tuesday to officially launch that, with it being available on the website and things. So specialist roles in the PMO coming your way. Just to let you know that the pilot course for this one did go very, very well. We were oversubscribed, which is a bit naughty of us, but normally we only allow up to 12 people on a course, but we had to squeeze a few more in because it was a pilot, and obviously pilots are really important to make sure that we're doing the best that we can. So that went really, really well. And if you're looking to do something in August, we have the actual course available as well. And it's the reason why I was interested in the use cases in the new PMI book is because we've got loads of use cases. So it's really interesting that diagram you showed, John, whether there are more use cases that are actually in the book. We'll be interested to kind of compare, this particular course has got quite a lot of use cases in it over the 2 days. So yeah, there's something else coming up. And the next event that's available, again, aligned to the PMO competency framework, we're making our way through competencies, knowledge, skills, and behaviors. And the next one under the spotlight is a PMO skill of collaboration. So come and join us on the 8th of July for that one. So that's a quick advert break because we've got loads to get on with. So yeah, we went out and about, and we obviously had the PMO conference last week, and we've kicked off with PMO Learn. Eileen, were
We
you
did,
there?
right then. So I've got 27 slides, so I'll be here about an hour and a half. Right then, I won't be. So Lindsay, just you keep up with your tapping your keys, and I can see if I can kind of go through this. Now, this was the first year we did something a little bit differently, where we actually kind of predetermined the subject areas completely, and then went and found speakers who could speak to the subject areas. And the overwhelming feedback was, did you write this agenda just for my organization? Which I think was great because it meant we actually kind of hit areas that people obviously are finding challenging and wanted some help and support. And genuinely, I think all of the 4 sessions, it doesn't matter how many times and how many years you spend in this industry, there's still new stuff you can find out every time. So I did the first session on choosing the right PMO model. Zoe did a great session on standardization and delivery methods. Then Stuart Easton did building governance that works. And then finally, we finished off with the irrepressible Ben Ganny, who did start with the end in mind. So when I did my session, if we start to flip, Lindsay, my session, what I didn't want it to be was another session that says, here we go and sort out, decide from the P3O model, decide on whether you want to be a kind of a lighthouse or a gatekeeper or whatever. And what we talked about is that how we set our PMOs up, or generally, they're right in somebody's eyes, but actually getting some consistency of view in terms of understanding why were PMOs set up. And so we talked about this confusion between what is written down in a vision document or a mandate or whatever. It says, this is what the PMO is for. But then people, and we're still suffering, Lindsay and I talk about this all the time, there isn't really a standard for PMOs because we know from the service catalogue we can do so much. What does an actual PMO do? So people have lots of assumptions. And then there's actually real life evidence about what we actually do on a day-to-day basis. And I would argue, and we talked about this in terms of kind of, it's not just about what we want to do and what we say we're going to do, it's what we're allowed to do. And there's a number of times where, we get to, we want you to challenge us, and the PMO goes and challenges, and they go away now, not on this project. Yes, we meant on other projects, on easier projects. This is difficult. So we looked at the kind of the differences between the kind of the why we have the PMO, and then we also we did quite a bit of work on that, and this is one I think that kind of comes up a lot, is that the organisation can sometimes have a very limited view about what they want the PMO to do. And as a PMO professional, we go in there, go, no, we can be fantastic, we can be wonderful, we can be strategic portfolio office. And the world is not ready. So I think there's sometimes a kind of a big discrepancy between what the world's ready for and what we want to do and what we know the PMO can do. But this to me was a really important slide that says, it doesn't matter where you are, you can still add value to the organisation. You have to meet the organisation where it is and add value to them at that point. So you may only be doing responsive value where you provide a level of support, but actually as you then kind of gain some trust and some credibility, they will allow you to do more, and you can build up to delivering strategic value. But what we don't want people to do is get disheartened and say, do you know, all I do is a few risk registers, a few minutes, because that's still adding value to the organization. That was the first. Second session we went on, you'll see the linkage hopefully, is then Zoe talked about, and she looked very fetching in her school mom's outfit. You'll have to look at some of the photographs for that when she wore her cape and cap. About actually starting to think about, and we've done the service catalogue, and we did the service about creating the delivery framework, and it can be hugely complicated, but at the same time I've also written delivery frameworks for organizations which are 5 pages long and completely fit for purpose. And so Zoe introduced us to this kind of the good enough test about, so just go back one, sorry a minute, Lindsay, I know you're trying to speed me up, I know. Do people know it exists? Does it change behavior, and would anybody miss it if it went, because if nobody follows it? So a really good test for us, and we're still going to have to do quite a bit of homework. Yes, and I think this is the kind of, we have to remember what the framework's for. We are there to help people deliver projects. We're not there to help them follow a process. And I think the mindset has to be, yes, agree what the framework is there to do, tailor it if you're required, document how you're going to do it, and then make sure that you, as you might need to change how you're going to deliver it, put it under kind of change control. And so the 3 key lessons, I'll wait till Lindsay's doing her hair, but the 3 key lessons were, caught you back, the 3 key lessons were, yes, good enough is actually a standard. You're not compromising. That is good enough. That's the definition of quality. Yes. And we're there to say that the framework and the methodology is about actually how do we get to project success in the most effective and efficient way possible by, kind of optimizing risk and objectives. And this about, yes, we need to be consistent, but we don't all have to be uniform. We need that consistent approach to a thought process, but we don't all have to be uniform. So really a session worth going to visit. Third session, we talked about Stuart Easton, and anybody who knows Stuart Easton knows we can't have a session without a plethora of ducks. So we talked about this kind of happy valley where we need to make sure we've got the right level of governance. The minimum viable governance is a phrase that's often used. So we don't have this mountain of red tape where nothing actually kind of flows through at all. It all just gets stuck. Or actually we live on Mount Chaos where just goodness knows what happens and who knows, but we're ever trying to put out fires. We want to live in happy valley, yes, where we've got the right level of governance. And just really interesting in talking about kind of some of the concepts about kind of why we did an exercise on building an appropriate level stage gate, and differentiating between kind of the health checks we would do in terms of where's the project at and is everything okay, to what we're trying to do at the stage gate is about that kind of future visibility. And you remember last time we did a session on looking out of the windscreen rather than the rear view mirror. So about reminding us it's about future viability, but not current health, which I think was an interesting kind of concept that we sometimes forget about, because we almost, it feels like we're doing the same thing as we do on our weekly health checks, and it's absolutely not. And then finally, the kind of the last lesson that we got from Stuart was about making sure that the only reason why we have governance is so it drives decision making. Yes, it isn't about beating people over the head. It isn't about kind of just giving an opinion. It absolutely has to align to improve decision making in the organization. And then the final session, and I have to say, as the day progressed, the speed of delivery, and I almost kind of think that the last 2 sessions, it'd be quite good to watch them at half speed, which sounds dreadful, but actually at half speed, you've probably got time to kind of gather together kind of some of the concepts. And I have to say, the materials this year, there was a great big wad of a book because we all provided lots of reference material to go back to. So Ben talked about strategic alignment, prioritization and benefits, which is absolutely his bag. And I think what the whole kind of concept of this is we don't just start at the beginning and create a strategy and a list of projects. Yes, it's an ongoing process. And very often, yes, it's about this concept of trade-offs, about, kind of excuse me, relative priority of various different kind of characteristics. So that's really where we started off. And then we went on and we talked a little bit more. We've got the next bit, Lindsay. Oh, there we go. Go back to this kind of governance and decision making about actually this kind of concept of portfolio managing. Yes, is about looking across the whole portfolio, and this constant checking back to strategy is about driving better decisions on what continues and what gets slowed down. And so if we I mean, to me, portfolio management is all about governance of projects, not the individual governance of single projects. And this is where there was a link, but a difference between the two. And I think we had a great exercise, which Ben built, which was based on the Three Little Pigs, which we played top trumps. Yes, and where we recognise that various different projects, depending, and we hopefully, well, if you don't know how top trumps, get in touch and I'll give you a lesson on top trumps. But essentially, depending on which characteristic you pick about your project, it might be the top of the queue or the bottom of the queue, and therefore having some concept in terms of how we use those various characteristics allows us to make some better decisions in terms of the trade-offs of the various characteristics of the benefits from the individual projects. So great sessions. They were all recorded this year and will be available to members, Lindsay.
Yes, just put it in the chat. But anybody listening on LinkedIn, if you are a member, you do get them. And we prioritise keynotes first. You've already got one in the members library out yesterday. You'll be getting keynotes first, and then we'll be picking off each one of these learns, because we're doing a lot of work in the background to make these usable and almost as if you were there. So yeah.
I think this is the bit we did this year, which we'd not done previously. We forced people to do that bit that no delegate likes at the end of a training course, and said, actually, there's no point in you sitting through all of this where you're bubbling full of ideas. We actually wanted to make it real. So actually you take away something that you actually kind of use in your organization. So we didn't get people to kind of go through all sessions. Everybody picked one session, one lesson that they could learn, and then had a conversation with their team. And actually, yes, I had some kind of a commitment with the people on the table to say, actually, this is what I'm going to do. And you know, research has shown the very fact that you've thought about it, you've written it down, you've articulated it to somebody else, hugely increases your chance that you're actually going to do that thing. And I think what we said is just do one thing. You've learned loads. You can come back at some other time. But if you can take one thing away and make a difference, then actually that justifies the cost of coming to the session.
Oh gosh, you must be boiling after doing that. You're a bit hot going through all of that at a galloping pace.
Done.
Let's meander through the next bit then. This is a great picture of the keynote, and it came with this. Hopefully you can hear this.
We can't hear.
You can't hear it. You can't hear.
Have you shared with volume?
No, but do I have to?
Yes.
Anyway, right, okay, that didn't work then. But he basically has his own theme tune called PMO Joe, which is hilarious. Where do you come from? Where do you go? Where do you come from? PMO Joe. You probably guessed the tune. But this is really funny. We've known PMO Joe for ages. I'm sure a lot of people here have come across PMO Joe before, and the stuff that he does with his own company, as well as the PMO leader. And he kicks off a keynote with a really interesting session about organizational project delivery. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember that PMI also used to have something called organizational project management. And they always used to have a kind of PMO element to that. So it's going back a few years now. But Joe's session was a keynote supposed to be thought-provoking. And for me, especially, he went into lots of different kind of things, but essentially why he's holding up the extension cable is to demonstrate, you know, from an organization point of view, that the PMO is the extension cable. It's temporary. you know. So the whole premise of his talk is, how do we make the PMO actually become part of the business rather than just an extension, which kind of ties into a lot of things that we've been hearing about over the last, I would certainly say, 12 months, where PMOs are being disbanded or PMOs are being reduced in size. You know, it's that thing where they always seem to be the first to go, and it makes us think about, well, you know, if we were more part of the furniture in an organization, you know, maybe that kind of stuff wouldn't be happening as much. There's a load of things in it, but the thing for me that was really interesting, and again, when we're always chatting through the conference and putting things on the app and stuff, so we will be sharing some of the apps from comments from people that were actually in the room as well, because, you know, we're getting different insights from people. But again, he talked about things like, you know, the sponsor and the champion. Why do we rely on people that are forever coming and going in an organization? You know, if we seem to be at the whim of, you know, we've got a new chief exec start, you know, we've got a new this, that, or another type of director that comes in and has a different idea about the PMO, and we have to think about how the PMO is going to be changed. You hear it all the time. And I think, you know, if the PMO, and I put on there, this is about a better path, or I suppose a better evolution for PMOs. There is, like I said, a lot of stuff, a lot of different parts within this keynote, and you will probably take away different things from it. But for me, it was all about, you know, PMO becoming more part of the furniture. Another thing, a little bit like what you've just seen with PMO Learn, that I don't know why we've not done this before. This is the 11th year of doing the conference, and then we've got to think about how we do this in future. But it was almost about a follow-up keynote to Joe was about actually, you know, how to be at this conference, how to take away the good stuff that's actually going to be useful, and the things that you're actually probably going to utilize and do. So it's almost like a way to be at a conference, specifically a PMO conference, which might sound a bit bizarre, but hopefully you'll see it and you'll understand, again, how important these things are, especially if, you know, you want to go to these conferences and you want to show your organization that there's a value and a benefit for you going. You know, these are the kind of things that we should be making front and center. And I'd love to know from people, when we start to put more of the conference stuff out and put it on socials, whether anybody's actually taken heed of this and actually done
Carry on if you want, B.
something.
Just finishing off.
Okay, and then finally, well, say finally, I want to see if I can get more in. This was, I've only been able to share with you the things that I actually went to see myself, because I haven't had a chance to look at all the other recordings either. This is a lovely picture of Sarah. She's been leading the PMO service catalogue refresh, working with Eileen, and she did her, I suppose, the talk with a crew on the front row. These are all the people that have been working very hard on creating the next version of the PMO service catalogue. And we were all given a really good handout which starts to give us an insight into how and what we're going to see in that second version. But she did a good job, didn't she, Eileen? I think you were going to do it with her at one point, weren't you?
Well, I think when we started doing it, it was going to be a joint talk, and then slowly I just took a big step backwards.
Yeah, so we will get round to
Did
obviously
a great job.
now, but yeah, we you know, again, I can't believe how detailed they've gone on some of the key things, and also people in the room as well. You know, there is an opportunity in listening to this now to actually become a reviewer of this new version. So before it goes to publication, it's obviously got to be reviewed. You can get involved with that, and we will be putting some links out. In fact, Stuart, if you know where it is on the website, you can pop that link in right now, and we will certainly put it in the LinkedIn group and on YouTube too. Just another one here, a minimal viable PMO. This is a recommendation for somebody on the continent that knows kind of stubbed into the conference before. He said, oh, it'd be really great. I saw him speaking in Germany. I'm just going to call him Dr. Jorg, you know, because that's what I kept calling him all the time. But he did a really good short and sweet. It's the minimal viable PMO. And, you know, for this kind of stuff, if you've been in and out of and been in and around PMOs for years, you'll probably be thinking, actually, there's nothing startling in this that you probably haven't thought about before. all it takes is for somebody to put some of the parts together and to just feed it back to you. But again, for me, when I was listening to this session, the thing that kind of stood out to me is just that reiteration of, give the stakeholders what they want. Don't give them too much, just give them the right kind of thing, and do it quickly, and put these things in place and test it and all within a couple of weeks. So again, we've heard it before. It comes out of the whole kind of agile premise of minimal viable product. Why can't we align that with our PMO? So there's some bits in there that you probably will take away rather than adopting the whole model, which is obviously what it's all about. This one with Pierre Powell that came over from Italy was a really interesting, thought-provoking session, which was about your special subject, Eileen, which was about judgment and about professional judgment. So we got really into, rather than just thinking about the day job, it was a bit of a career poke, a bit of a thing to think about in terms of the way that, what we're doing is not necessarily a role, it's a mindset. And it fed into the whole kind of professional judgment stuff, which is great because that's the kind of thing that we've got on the kind of behavioural and skills side of the PMO and the competency framework. And you think, well, how does that actually play out? Well, it's going to be an interesting session for you to have a look at. And then finally, before we go, I've got nothing else after this one. This is Benita Norris. She was the first 22-year-old female to reach the top of Mount Everest, having only started climbing 2 years before. I tell you what, at this session at the end of the day, there were a lot of people in tears, which is really, really interesting, of which it was one of them. I made a lot of notes as I was going through. There's a lot on there. We're running out of time, but I will definitely be sharing those when we put out the recording for it, because it's a great one. If you're a member, you're going to be able to see it again. Play it with the team. There's a lot of stuff on there that, as you can see, I had to make notes as you were talking because I had to go up on stage and say what I'd taken away from it. And then 5 people in the room got a copy of her book for also sharing. So that's how we saw some of the emotion that was involved in this session. But went down a storm, which was a brilliant session. And again, just getting into the core, motivation, leadership, helping each of the teams. It's one of those talks, but that really, really, really leaves you with lots of different things. And of course, here on the session, on the last bit, is just some of the people that are behind it, including our 2 young works experience people on that previous slide. And these are mainly the people that were behind the scenes. But we had a great time. There's a lot of work to do. For people that were there, you should be getting all the stuff today for you to dip into the recordings and the decks. So everybody else, you'll be dropping it out very, very soon. So that's it. I'm hoping that we're not too over, but that's it. Yeah, Eileen, you want to say goodbye?
No, we had a great time. Lovely. Hope to see you again at the next one, and November might be happening.
Yeah. You'll find out about Edinburgh in the next 2 weeks. You're going to be really excited because it's different. All right. Okay. Take care, everybody. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely, good rest of your weekend. Don't get sunburnt. I think there'll be thunderstorms aplenty. Lovely. Oh, you can feel the heat, can you not? Thank you very much for everybody who was joining us here and on the